team where like, you go one way and what a great game and Kirk Cousins looked great. And then, oh my God, how bad could it be? And then ping pong right back. It's kind of been a roller coaster ride for us already through these first couple of weeks.
A giant roller coaster from week one to where it was just this dominating win. So you're feeling really good about the team. But Kirk only had to throw 10 balls to the week 2 performance against Green Bay, which was a disaster offensively. And then to, week 3, another dominating performance, to week 4, a little bit of a disaster, to week 5, another dominating performance. So it is up and down and sort of the opposite of consistency. But what is consistent is when the Vikings get a lead by 10 or more points, they seem to have the ability to, sort of just wear teams out and continue to play good defense and get that running game going. And the quarterback plays better in those types of situations.
And also the teams that they lost to, good. The teams that they beat, bad.
And that's a long history. Well, I mean,
Right.
at least with the quarterback, there's a long history there of beating the average to below average teams, but losing to the best teams.
So Mike Sando, who's going to join us on Wednesday at 3:00 of The Athletic, addressed exactly that with Kirk Cousins, that yesterday was his highest yards per attempt of his starting career with the Minnesota Vikings. And he looked at the opponent defensive rank against, who he did it against and where they ranked in defense. And the Giants ranked 25th currently. The Falcons 31st. That was in week 1. The Raiders 26th, and basically all of his really good games in terms of yards per attempt have come against teams that rank somewhere between 21 and 31, which is not really surprising and matches up with exactly what we've seen, because the opposite end of Kirk Cousins' spectrum is losses against the Bears, the top defenses, loss against the Bills, who had a good defense last year, the Patriots, who had a good defense last year. And I guess my question, Sage, is it always going to be this way? Because if you look at the schedule that they have to face, that doesn't seem like it's a great model for being anything more than 8-8 or 9-7.
Well, I said there's a history here, and we saw it last year. We saw a lot of great stats last year, but it only added up to 8 wins. And so at the end of the day, it's those key stats. And in particular, when the Vikings are in a close game or when they're losing by, a field goal, a touchdown, or even more, can, Cousins's play bring the team back? Can he, sort of put the team on the shoulders, those types of things? And we have not really seen too much of that. Obviously, I have not seen that this year. So I will say this: defense. A buddy of mine is a big Giants fan. He texted me during the game, man, your defense is incredible. Defense is really good yesterday, and that running game was obviously phenomenal. And Dalvin Cook, man, it's just amazing that speed you see where. He gets around the edge and then boom, he gets another 10 yards. You feel like, the DB or the linebacker is going to maybe run him down, and it just doesn't happen. And so they've got these pieces that are really special, a really good defense, and that running game was really something else yesterday. And the pass protection was pretty good for the most part, and in particular on play action. There was some pass protection on play action yesterday that was, it seemed like he had 5, 6, 7 seconds in the pocket, and that allowed him to find some guys down the field. So I think overall that was the most impressive win that the Vikings had this year.
So it's kind of the model that they talked about early in the season, and what it should look like is everyone points the finger at Zimmer and says all he wants to do is run the football. All he wants to do is run the football. But I think in the NFL today, you have to have the run game set up by the pass game, which is more along the lines of what they did yesterday, that they showed right off the bat with a throw to Stephon Diggs, moving the ball down the field, using some screen passes to Dalvin Cook, that they could throw the ball effectively. And then as the game went along and they were ahead, it was let's have Dalvin Cook break out for 41 yards and end this game. But here's what I want to know from you, Sage.
By the way, think of the, with the run game and the pass game, going for over 500 yards yesterday combined, which is outstanding in the NFL. It's like average in college, in particular in the Big 12 conference, but in the NFL, that's outstanding.
Some Pac-12 offense.
Anytime you get over 400 yards, it's a pretty good day, at least from a yardage perspective. But what I loved about it, obviously, was the 6.2 yards per carry, and then the 13.9 yards, per completion, and a lot of deeper
throwing it down the field.
throwing it down the field, and that was nice. And you don't see throwing it down the field again from like the straight drop back stuff. When they drop back, you see it seems like Kirk is hitting the underneath stuff. They have these little sort of arrow routes, they call them, whether it's digs or it's stealing, but it's these underneath completions, sort of find a zone, get the ball a little bit quicker, get the ball out of the quarterback's hands, and don't test that offensive line. But when you really want to take some shots yesterday, those receivers, they do win for the most part, versus man-to-man coverage, and they were winning yesterday, and Cousins was hitting them yesterday. So, that was nice to see that sort of, if you draw up a style of win for the Vikings, it wasn't a perfect day, but I would say it seemed about 90% perfect by the way the defense played, by the way they ran the ball, and then how that play action worked. Like that was the formula. And the bootlegs were working. The bootlegs were working yesterday, and they weren't working in Green Bay a few weeks ago, but they were working yesterday. And you sort of see how that allows for these receivers to get down the field for some big completions, and the quarterback is not sitting in the pocket taking a lot of hits.
So I was looking through your career game log here, Sage, and I found a game that you played against John Gruden's Tampa Bay Buccaneers, where you went 27 for 36, 209 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks, 116 quarterback rating against a defense that finished third in the entire NFL that year in Tampa Bay. So explain to me, because you have experience doing it, how Kirk Cousins can beat a good defense. I mean, because when I was watching yesterday, Sage, I mean, you've got guys running wide open. You have a third down in the red zone where they decide, yeah, we're going to play man-to-man on Adam Thielen in the slot. As if there's any corner that they have that can handle a two-way go for one of the best route runners in the NFL. And it's like guaranteed. I mean, you were calling plays from the press box in Chicago. Well, I called that one. I said they're going to go to Thielen here. There's no safety one-on-one over him. He's one-on-one. I mean, there were a lot of just tremendously bad plays by the Giants yesterday. But
by the way, what's amazing about Adam Thielen, it always sort of shocks me sometimes, is he gets around when he's in bump coverage. He gets around the cornerback or the nickel will or whoever the player is, but he gets around them without losing a lot of ground, like sideways. And he stays vertical. And then he doesn't look that fast. Like that's the thing, is he doesn't look that fast. But when you watch him run, he pulls away from the corner. I mean, he is right there. The corner's right there. And then as that route develops, and there's only a 15-yard throw or something, but he's like 4 yards, 3 yards past the DB to where he's like wide open. Like that's almost always some sort of like jump ball, contested throw, type of thing down there. And he just put the guy in his dust, and he has this knack for separation.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I remember early in my career, I think I was playing with the Dolphins, and one of our coaches had gone to some conference, and like Krzyzewski was there, and all these college and pro coaches of various sports were there, and they were talking about in football and in basketball, there's an interesting thing about getting away from people.
Yeah.
The ability to separate.
Mm-hmm.
Your 40 time doesn't do it. Your quickness drills and your high jump and all whatever these things are that you do it, like the combine and all these things. That's such a thing that's like it's not always even teachable either. Like just some people have the ability to separate themselves from the cornerback, and the NFL, that's so important, is the ability to get away from people. And Adam Thielen has that knack, and you don't really see it with some like crazy move. He just separates himself from those DBs and makes the life of a quarterback much easier.
Yeah, no, he does. And I did a piece on him as a basketball player where I talked to him about his basketball career, and I talked to one of his basketball coaches. And it's the same sort of thing in basketball, where it doesn't always have to be the fastest person. If they can sort of manipulate defenders into hesitating or whatever else it might be, they can create space. And he's incredible at that. And that's why him in the slot makes so much sense, is because he has that two-way go. And then, he can get into space and make moves. But
and it looks like, by the way, I think they found a third receiver.
BC Johnson has done very well. That's right.
I'm not going to say I called it out in the preseason, but I feel like one of the early preseason games, I was like, this kid looks pretty good, looks comfortable, and seems like he can be an outside guy, maybe an inside guy. He's got good hands. Seemed to run a couple good routes yesterday and had 4 catches. And, they've been looking for that third receiver. I think they found one in BC Johnson.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And he sort of developed and came along as the preseason and training camp went on. We talked about how the receivers weren't really showing the proper development. And then at the end, he sort of showed up and now looks like a reliable receiver. But let me circle back, Sage, to that point on beating good defenses, because you faced quite a few in your career. And I just want you to tell me the difference, because it's such a massive difference in the performances from Kirk Cousins against average to bad versus really good. And I don't know if that's just pressure or if it's a bunch of different things. So tell me about the difference between when a team is great at defense and when they're not.
Well, it depends on the type of defense. That Tampa defense at the time. John Lynch was on that team, and they still had Derek Brooks, and I think Rondé Barber was in that game. I mean, they still had a lot of those great players from that Tampa team, and Monty Kiffin was the defensive coordinator. But the thing about that defense was it was not complicated. They really played about three coverages the whole game. They occasionally blitz, but it was the quote unquote Tampa 2, which Monty Kiffin invented. They played Tampa 2 some, but they also played a lot of what we call just basic cover 3. And then they play a little man to man, but more sort of keep the ball in front of you. Everyone has eyes on the quarterback. Everyone has eyes on the receivers or whatever, and you're not turning your back, to where the ball is. And so everyone runs to the football better, which allows, turnovers to happen because the first person gets there, then the second person gets there and knocks the ball out, and everyone sort of has eyes on the ball. It's sort of it's the opposite, really, in a lot of ways, of the Zimmer thing, which is a lot of man-to-man coverage. Even what we call cover 4 is really a form of man-to-man, at least underneath, like with the tight ends and the running backs in a lot of ways. And so, in those zone coverage defenses, my thought process always was get the ball out, sort of not necessarily as quickly as possible, but get the ball out of my hands, because I should be able to fairly easily identify what I'm going against here pre-snap. There shouldn't be some, I have to like figure things out as I'm dropping back and what coverage they in and all these things. I sort of knew what I was going to get. And to get the ball out of my hands quickly, get the ball in my hands of my receivers or backs or whoever it is, and let them, sort of make the plays and make their moves and make things happen. I always felt the longer the ball is in my hands as a quarterback, the less chance we have of getting towards the end zone. You know what I mean? It's like I'm not getting this thing towards the other end of the field. It's my receivers and my running backs. So the quicker I get to them, the fewer hits I'm going to take too. But I can get to them and they can make some things happen. And so I think we saw a lot of that yesterday of him, on the straight drop back stuff, not pushing the ball down the field, but getting the ball out and making those guys tackle. And we saw that, that great shot across yesterday to Stephon Diggs, where he, get him the ball, and he made two guys miss and ended up having a pretty good gainer on that one.
Yeah,
so,
that was that 3rd and 7. And there was another one on an out route to Adam Thielen that was a 3-step hitch and throw by Cousins that was right on time and a perfectly accurate throw. And when you attend training camp practice and you see Cousins throw day after day after day after day, you see how incredibly accurate he can be on those exact plays. So then when they play someone like the Chicago Bears, and I understand they're good, but they were missing 2 of their better players, it seems like these things speed up in his mind, or that he feels the pressure that isn't there, or the windows close, or maybe it's just all the different factors that go into it. Because I think anybody who watched that game yesterday said, yeah, that right there, that's a good quarterback making throws, right?
That's exactly right. And so on the other end, I said I went over that sort of Tampa 2 style defense, but on the other end, you would go against teams that were, I guess from my history, I'm aging myself, but the Rex Ryan style defenses, which were very attacking and a lot of blitzes and weird fronts and unusual things that maybe weren't always like sound defensively, but they just figured they're going to roll the dice, per se, and say you're not going to run on 3rd and 7, so we're going to do some crazy overload blitz. And which is like not really sound defensively, but almost impossible to pick up. So and you go through the week of practice and you've got all this film of 38 blitzes and you're trying to figure all these things out, and then they all have different various forms of man or zone coverage behind them, and sometimes it's single high safety coverage, and sometimes it's a 2 high safety, like sort of zone blitzes, as they say. And there's just like a lot of pieces for your mind to sort of digest. And I struggled more in those. And those are better for the guys who are sort of like what I call see it and throw it. Like, I'm going to go back. I have, I don't really know what the defense is in, but I can see my guy is going to be open and I can fire him the ball and not necessarily even know what defense they're in. And I don't think Kirk is really that type of guy. I
Hmm.
think he's a guy that plays better when he's a little more comfortable. Of course, most quarterbacks do, but he's more comfortable when he knows sort of, I said, he's diagnosed the defense pre-snap, or he gets the ball and he sees where they go to, and now he can just drop back, use his footwork, and be accurate with the football. That's where he's at his best. He's at his worst when teams are throwing a whole bunch of things at him, causing him to think a lot, and then which I think slows down the process and slows down his ability